This is the Clear Money Talk podcast, offering up creative solutions for your retirement future through education, choice, transparency, and empathy. Now, your host, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners, Tim Claremont.
Hello and welcome to Clear Money Talk. My name is Tim Claremont. I am the CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners and your host for today. I actually have no idea what I'm going to be talking about today, which is going to be really fun because Tyler has set everything up. Tyler is your wondrous, illustrious co-host. And I'm just going to turn it over to Tyler to let you know what the topic is. You actually know it before I do because you probably read it when you clicked on this podcast and you said, I want an answer to that question. So let's find out what question I'll be answering today. Tyler.
That sounds good. The illustrious never gets old, by the way, too. I appreciate you always using that one. That one holds strong and steady, so I appreciate that
compliment. Shine like a diamond.
So, my name's Tyler Andrews, co-host here with Tim, and we're excited. We're in the podcast studio. We're going back and forth answering money questions that everybody out there has. And today's a special one, more so dedicated to a grouping of questions that many of you out there might have, with the topic being, how can Americans thrive financially in a diverse and dynamic landscape? I'm going to read that back because I butchered it. How can Americans thrive financially in a diverse and dynamic landscape?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to say that again just so I understand that. Yeah. This is the question we're answering today. How can Americans thrive today in a diverse and dynamic landscape?
That's right. Thrive financially.
Right. That's a thrive financially. Okay, got it. Thrive financially. Got it. Clear.
So we took a grouping of 10 of the highest or most asked questions relating to money that Americans currently have, and these types of questions are always going to be evolving and changing with the current state of the economy and whatever's happening in the world. But right now, this is what we came up with for the top 10 money-related questions that Americans have, and then we sorted those by most relevant to people living in the Pacific Northwest. So whether we did a good job with that or not, we'll see. But the 10 questions, I've only breezed over them, so they're going to be pretty fresh to me, and Tim has no idea what they're going to be. So
excellent. We're relying on this sorting from artificial intelligence. Right?
That's right.
The large language model. So
that's right. Yeah.
So we'll see what they have to say. So for all we know, they have their own agenda and they're trying to push us to answer questions that the artificial intelligence now wants to answer, but probably not.
That's right. Yeah, we'll see.
We're probably not there yet. So let's see what we're answering today.
How do you want to do this, Tim? Do you want to go through all 10 first to get a summary of what we're looking at? Do you want to just go start with the first one and dive into it?
I think let's take them in order one at a time, and I'll answer each one, and I'll try to balance the time accordingly. So we'll give all 10 answers, then we'll recap at the end. So for just the answer version, for those people that just want to listen to the answer, we'll have to recap and hit the quick answers for all 10 of them again.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, what do you got? What's number one?
Number one.
This is the top priority according to the artificial intelligence in the Pacific Northwest of all issues that affect America. Okay, all right, let's see. What do you got? Money-related issues. What do we got?
What is the current state of the economy, and how does it affect my finances?
Oh, wow. What is the current state of the economy and how does it affect my finances?
That's a broad one.
So I'm sure a lot of people are probably wondering that if you think about the state of the economy. And I guess the answer I would give as it relates to that is it's important to understand the difference between the stock market and the economy. They're two completely different things. A lot of times people confuse the two. They think if the stock market's up, then the economy's good, or if the stock market's down, the economy's bad. And that's just not the way it works. So the economy is actually typically measured by growth in gross domestic product, or in other words, are we having more revenue coming in and creating actual growth of services and products net of where we were previously for the prior quarter or for the quarter before that, and so on. So you can actually have the economy expanding and still have the stock market go down, and vice versa. So how is the economy? I think when ChatGPT or whatever artificial intelligence, whether we use BART or whatever, I don't know. But came up with this question. That most people are wondering, how does that affect me? Okay, if the economy's up, is that good for me? Is it bad for me? How does it affect me? Unfortunately, the answer is complicated, convoluted, and a little bit of a rabbit hole because it affects everybody a little bit differently. Your current economic circumstances, wherever you may be more drastically affected by government support, for example, than interest rate movement. On the other hand, if you're currently purchasing your primary residence and it's your first home, the current environment for interest rates may actually have a huge bearing on your day-to-day finances. If you are, on the other hand, anticipating retirement in the next 6 months, then how high interest rates are could eventually set the bar for how your income stream is going to start in your retirement years, and that may actually set your retirement for the rest of your life. If you're a PERS employee, for example, and you're going to retire from PERS, the interest rate impact on the calculation of your final pension could be affected, and that'll set your pension for the rest of your life. So there are a lot of things that could have massive impact on your personal financial circumstances based on what's going on right now. And for some of us out there, it's the stock market. For some of us, it's interest rates. For some of us, it's overall economic growth. But I can tell you, your gut check is probably spot on in the sense that, hey, if we have a good economy for extended periods of time, that usually leads to better things for most people, and I think that's a fair summation. If there's more money coming into our country, there's more money that's there. There's more money to be distributed to whatever services and opportunities might be there. Our existing policies that we have in place that are supporting a lot of our aspects. Our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers are all being taken care of. That's all going to provide better education and other opportunities for our children. If the money is coming in and we have that extra money coming in for ourselves personally, and we make more money, we have more income, then we have more choice of where to vote those dollars. We can spend that money on whatever we want to do to pursue our own unique vision of happiness. So I think that how does the economy relate? If it's going better, usually things are going better for the majority of Americans, but there's always the exception to the rule.
I think that's a great answer, Tim. Appreciate you sharing your insights on that. And just depends on what you're in, what you're not in, what you're doing, what you're not doing. People have all their money in a coffee can. There's people that are invested in everything that's available to be invested in, and those two people are going to, vary drastically with how the economy and how the economy is doing is going to affect their personal finances. So
yeah, that's fair. Which is why everybody's personal financial situation is so unique. Whatever your individual situation is, your age, your gender, your marital status, your net worth, your income, how much you're saving, how much you have for emergencies, how much you have set aside for fun, all of that is going to ultimately be a piece in your individual puzzle that is going to make the picture of your puzzle when it's put together. And we're basically professional puzzle put togetherers. We just put it together for you and maybe reassemble the pieces of your existing puzzle that you have to try to make a better picture. And that's what we do.
I might update my LinkedIn with that.
Professional puzzle put togetherer?
Yes, that's right.
Assembler is probably a better word.
Yeah, I like the assembler. It's more professional. Thank you for that. All right. Do we feel good about number one?
Yeah, I feel really good about number one for now. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Number two, this is a funny one. How can I save more money?
Ooh, how can I save more money? Whew,
here's just the answer.
Yeah, just the answer. How can I save more money? Well, you just
save more money.
That's right. It's as simple as that.
Go into detail of it, though, for the listeners.
Figuring out how much you can save. I was just having a conversation this last week with a new client coming on board, having a conversation with her, and she was saying that she's been pretty much living paycheck to paycheck, and she doesn't do a good job with budgeting, and I totally get that. That's a common story. I hear that. A lot of people are like, hey, I have the paycheck come in, I spend the money, I make sure I don't spend more than I have on my paycheck, and at the end of the month, I don't have as much money, I wait for the next paycheck, and then I spend the money again. And that obviously will never lead towards building wealth. You have to have a certain percentage of your income that you save. Otherwise, you're not going to build savings or build investments or build wealth in any capacity. If you keep living paycheck to paycheck, there's going to be problems. And you might make the argument that, hey, I can barely get by on the paycheck I have. I totally get that. That's fair. But there's a personal choice that we all make when we say, I am going to spend up to this number. And you have to have that self-discipline. It's the same way, look, I have a problem eating really good food. I love good food. I eat too much. I know I eat too much, right? If I have a really, really good meal, I want seconds. I don't need the seconds. I know right where they're going to go. They're going to go permanently on my body and probably not lead to healthy Tim, but they taste really friggin' good. So I want to eat the seconds. It's the same way with your money. When you're dealing with a paycheck, you have to take a percentage of that check and say, I'm going to save this percentage. Generally speaking, you should live on about 80% of the income that you have and save 20% of it. 10% of that maybe towards emergencies, 10% of that towards long-term investing. That's a good rule of thumb. Now, some people, they can afford to save a lot more than 20%. Other people, they just are barely getting by and they honestly cannot save any of it. And that's your unique situation. But I'm telling you, as a good rule of thumb, it'd be better for you to learn to build a lifestyle spending only 80% of your check, saving 20% of your check. And if you want to spend more money on lifestyle, you need to make more money. So you need to go get another job or have the other member of your household get another job or make a higher income level or something along those lines in order to spend more money. If you violates the savings. If you dip into that and spend more than the 80%, it's going to decrease how much you save, and it's just going to lead to more challenges later.
Yeah, great answer. I feel good with that one.
Yep, I'm good.
Just the answer, save more money.
Just the answer, save more money. Yep,
That's right.
a simple side. Just like eat less food if I want to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
that's the answer.
Yeah.
I know the answer. It's just hard to do.
That's right.
So,
That's good. Question 3, should I refinance my mortgage and or student loans?
should I refinance my mortgage and or student loans? Right now, that really is interest rate sensitive. So if you have
Yes.
any kind of debt right now, mortgages, student loans, you really need to watch the interest rates. The trick to paying the least amount of, well, let's talk about what interest is for a second. So if you have a mortgage or you have a debt, like a student loan debt, let's say it's $100,000, okay? Obviously, most mortgages are more than that. Most student loan debts are probably less than that, though there are several student loan debts that are higher, and maybe there are some mortgages that are lower. But the point is, let's use a simple round number, $100,000. If you have $100,000 of debt and your interest rate is 8% as an example, then you actually, at the end of the year, if you didn't make any payments, you would owe $108,000. You would owe 8% of that $100,000. Now that $8,000 extra that you paid is like rent. It's rent to the person who loaned you $100,000. You're paying rent to borrow that $100,000 and use it for whatever purpose you used it for, whether it's for the purchase of your house or whether it was to go to school or whether it was to pay for your kid to go to school. It's just like rent. Well, and right now rent is high. That 8% is relatively high. We've seen interest rates go up in the last year and a half, and therefore it means that price of the rent is a little bit higher than normal. That's usually not when you want to be refinancing, but you have to compare what your rent rate is. If you have a 12% rent, in other words, a 12% interest rate on maybe credit card debt or on a student loan or on a mortgage or something like that, I mean, that's a really high interest rate. You could probably refinance right now to a much lower rate. As long as your credit's good, as long as you can qualify, you want to get the lowest interest rate possible. It's like living as cheaply as you can with rent. It's like if they would let you live there rent free, that would be a 0% interest rate on your debt. It's the same thing. You just want the lowest rate you can get. So anything you can do to get a lower rate that doesn't cost you a lot of money is worth looking into. And that's the quick answer to that. Get the lowest rate you can get. If you can't get a lower rate right now because interest rates are a little higher, then just keep paying what you're paying, pay down whatever you can to get it paid off, and know that the higher your interest rate is, the more important it is for you to pay down that debt.
Yep. I feel good about that. Ready for the next one?
I'm ready. Let's keep
All right,
going.
that's one.
Yeah.
And this one kind of expands on the question 2 that we had, which was how can I save more money? Question 4 here is how can I create a budget and stick to it? So I think this kind of goes back to that question 2 where you were talking about maybe spending 80% of your paycheck on living expenses and just getting by day to day. And then that remaining 20% of your paycheck, you should maybe try to create a budget and save that, whether it's for emergencies, for long-term investing, for a short-term investment opportunity that you're looking for. Whatever that might be, I think that's a good place to start. But maybe, Tim, you have some additional things you wanted to say on creating a budget, how to stick to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It's like asking me, what's the diet that works and how do you stick to the diet? It's the same
True.
kind of thing
Different
we're talking
for
about. It's
everyone.
not easy. Just because you do it, just because you create it, just because you know what it is, you still got to actually live it. And when you live it, that's the hard part. So the deal with the budget, I can give you some suggestions that have worked great for clients. I've been doing this since 1997, so 26 years now. And unless you're listening to this a couple years from now, which hopefully it'll be out there still, we'll see. But my point is, budgets, it's not for everybody. Just like diets, there's a bunch of different kinds of diets that work for some people and they don't work for other people. So budgets, it's the same kind of deal. But the basics are this. There's certain expenses that are fixed expenses. Those are the things that you just really can't change every month. They are what they are. If you bought a car and you have a car payment, or if you have a car lease, you have to make that payment every month or you have no car, right? You need a vehicle in order to work. Now, you might sell that car and buy a cheaper car and therefore get a lower payment, but that's a lot of work to change that. Otherwise, I would say it's arguably pretty much a fixed rate. Your rent or your mortgage payment, another fixed expense. You're going to spend that same amount of money every single month, really no matter what you do, unless you sell the house and buy a new house or move. It's these big life change things. If you have to do a lot to change that number, like change your lifestyle completely, then you're probably talking about changing a fixed expense. When you're looking at budgeting, put that on one category. Create a T-chart. A T-chart is just get a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle, vertically, line down the middle. On the left side, put fixed expenses at the top. On the right side, put variable expenses. All those fixed expenses are the things you really can't change every single month. The variable expenses are the things that you can change. How often do you buy a cup of coffee? How often do you go out to eat? How often do you go to a movie or spend money on some other kind of social entertainment activity? You could choose to not do those things, and therefore you wouldn't have those expenses. How often do you spend money on clothing purchases that are really more luxury or discretionary as opposed to necessity? Those are examples of variable expenses. And those go on the right-hand side. If you look back at your expenses that you spent money on for the last month and just list everything that you spent that was over $5, put it on one side, fixed expenses, put on the other side, variable expenses based on the kind of category it was, and then just look at what you did. Don't beat yourself up about it. That doesn't do anybody any good, but look at what you did. Look at what you spent money on. And if you don't have the information, well, then start tracking it going forward. Do it for the next 30 days. That's how you start to get a sense. You have to look at the problem with realistic glasses on, not rainbow colored glasses, but real glasses. See clearly what you're spending your money on. That's the beginning of setting a budget. And then if the fact is that your income that's coming in is less than your fixed expenses, well, you're going to go into debt. There's going to be problems, right? You need to have enough money coming in to cover your fixed expenses and give you enough room to cover your variable expenses. And if you can cover a lifestyle with 80% of what you have coming in, cover fixed and variable expenses, that's what gives you the freedom to then invest or save that extra 20% and start to build wealth. Cover those emergency things that pop up, those one-off expenses that we all know are going to happen eventually, and you have to have a bucket of money to dip into to cover those expenses. So there's a little bit more detailed example as far as how you can start to work on creating a budget. But the hard part's living it. You can create it, you can design it, you can look at it, you can take a picture of it with your phone, you can say, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. 2 days later, are you going to eat that extra portion at dinner? Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's really, really, really good food. But you have to make that decision, and you have to learn to live the budget. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just an exercise.
Yeah, there's some work that has to go into this one, and you got to do the work. No one can do it for you. You have to do the work, and it's both creating the budget, which is you're doing the work to do that, putting all the summary together, what you're spending, what you're not spending, what your income is, and then it's once you have the budget, the discipline to stick to it. That's maybe even harder than putting the budget together, is having that discipline. So thanks for that, Tim. Mm-hmm. Next question, number 5. Is it a good time to buy a home, or should I continue renting? This is one that I think a lot of people have been asking for a while now.
Yeah.
Because we've been in such a dynamic landscape with real estate, interest rates, inflation, everything. Yeah. For going back all the way to COVID, and you could argue going back even before then.
This is not as easy and black and white as a lot of people pretend it to be. Yeah. Buying a house and renting is not an automatic you should do this or you should do that situation. It is a lifestyle choice. I was just watching a YouTuber, I think, communicating his belief that you should rent forever because you can control your rent.
Flexibility.
You have total flexibility. You know what the dollar amount is. If you buy a house, you don't even know how much you're going to spend every month because you've got utilities, you've got gas, you've got electric, you've got maintenance, things that pop up. You can't even control what all those expenses are when you own your own home. Plus, you have your mortgage. With a rent, you just have the rent, and you can kind of control the rest. There's not any additional expenses or ultimately can fall on the landlord as far as those scenarios, and you have flexibility to just leave. That's an interesting counter argument to the typical argument that I would usually make. Now, the only way you get to build equity in your home is if you own it. So I do believe that if you can afford to own your own residence, it's better to be paying the interest on your mortgage and getting a tax break for that and building equity. Hopefully your house appreciates over time. If you have a good economy in the long run, hopefully you'll see the value of that property appreciate. Then, that's how you can build wealth inside of your home, by owning it instead of by renting. But it does come with responsibility, and it comes with other unanticipated expenses, and you have to be able to handle that responsibility and those other unanticipated expenses to make that decision. So it's not an automatic should or shouldn't. I will say that I don't know any wealthy individuals who don't own real estate. Everybody I know that builds wealth owns real estate, whether it's their home, they're just their primary residence, or whether it's their commercial properties, or whether it's rental properties or apartment complexes. You might only own your home and then have a bunch of other wealth, or you might have most of your wealth tied up in real estate. But I don't know any extremely wealthy people who don't have any ownership in real estate. Even if you like the rental lifestyle, you could still buy a house, turn it into a rental, let a tenant pay for the rent on that house, and you still own equity in that property, and then you could personally rent yourself. And you can still have the renter lifestyle and just have the responsibility of ownership of that house that's being rented out. So you're handling that. So there are ways to make these decisions in whatever capacity you want. I personally have the belief set that I think you probably want to own anything that you're going to live in so that you can continue to control the value of that if you're going to take care of it.
Yeah, that's well said. The only thing I'm going to add is I think a lot of people have been waiting on the sidelines for some huge event to happen to make it obvious for them to make one decision or the other. And I don't think that event has happened as of yet. And I don't know if it's going to happen. Obviously, we can't predict the future. But I feel like a lot of people are waiting to make that decision because they want some, a non-entity event to happen to make it obvious for them on what they need to do. Is that kind of what you feel for some people? They're like waiting for the market to crash, or they're waiting for interest rates to drop all of a sudden.
Some people are waiting for a sign, right? They want to see a sign to say it's time to buy or something like that. My belief, this relates to the stock market as well as real estate, which is I believe it's about time in the market, not timing the market. And I don't pretend to know the future value of real estate or the future value of stocks or any kind of stock market environment. And the shorter the period of time, the more likely you're going to see that fluctuation. You might buy a house today for $600,000, and a year from now, maybe it's worth $500,000. And maybe that makes you sick because you feel like you lost money. Maybe theoretically you should have waited a year and bought it at $500,000, but you can't do the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Were you really going to buy the house and only hold it for 12 months? Like, probably not. Most people buy a house and they hold it for years. So if you own something for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or longer, there's a much higher probability statistically, historically, that will be worth more in 5 or 10 years than it is worth what you paid for it. That tends to be the case of what we've seen from an inflation standpoint. And if that is in fact the case, you would have been better off buying it earlier rather than later. So I think the key for me is time in the market, not timing the market. And don't wait for a sign. Wait till you're ready, as soon as you can afford it. If you decide you want to be an owner and not a renter, you should probably go ahead and look for your home.
That's good. And we have another podcast we recorded on this similar topic. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that, I think you can take more information away from that podcast as well. So that sounds good. Question 6, what are the tax implications of my financial decisions? The very ambiguous question here. Preface it with, we are not tax professionals. We are not legal professionals. We can't give you tax advice. We can't give you legal advice. We can give you financial advice. And that loops back around to sometimes 2 tax situations, but we can't specifically give you tax advice. Tim, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
I appreciate the caveats you just articulated. That's well said. Well said, Tyler. Yeah, we can't give you tax advice or legal advice. We're not attorneys or accountants. So we recommend you work with those professionals when you're working on those areas. I am going to need a refresher on what the question is, though, because I got distracted by the caveats. So what exactly is this next question, Tyler?
What are the tax implications of my financial decisions?
Oh, okay. So the short answer to this is they're big. That's the answer. Your financial decisions have massive tax implications. And financial decisions is so vague in terms of the way that it's phrased. I mean, there's just so many examples that I can give you. Your choice to add money as a financial decision into your retirement account, like a 401k or a simple IRA or traditional IRA, whether you choose a traditional or a Roth account, have massive tax implications. How you choose to invest those portfolios inside of the 401k or IRA account will ultimately determine the growth of the portfolio or not. And that can have tax implications later when you go to access that growth down the road. If you decide you want to buy a home and or even living in the state, the financial decision of living in the state of Oregon versus Washington versus another state is going to have massive tax implications because every state's a little bit different in the way that their tax situation is. And all of that factors in. When I was 13 years old, I remember getting my first paycheck. I was a DMO, dish machine operator at Sherry's Restaurants. And I got my first paycheck, and I opened it up, and it was way less than what I thought it was going to be because I just took my hourly wage, minimum wage at the time, times how many hours I worked. And, I did the math, and I was like, well, I thought that's what my check was going to be. And no, there was something called FICA and FUTA and FedInc and StatInc, and they all just took a bunch of money out of the check. And I was like, what's this? And I talked to my dad, and that was taxes. And he explained to me taxes, and he used to do his own taxes with J.K. Laser's tax guide and all that stuff. And he's like, you can do your own taxes, Tim. You're good at math. And so I was doing a 1040 EZ at 13 years old, looking at what the tax situation looked like on my earnings from being a dish machine operator at Sherry's. And I was like, wow, this is frustrating. I get it. But that's those taxes. That's how we pay for things like our roads, like our police officers and our firefighters and our teachers, all the people that take care of a lot of the things that we need every day. We need to have those taxes to cover that, but you don't always understand that at 13 years old. And when you think about taxes in general, there are ways to legally reduce your taxes. And it's a function. That's all it is. Many people overpay in taxes every year out of ignorance. They don't realize that there were things that were legitimately there to allow them to reduce their tax burden, and they just didn't know about it. And because they didn't know about it, they made poor financial decisions and overpaid in taxes. It's okay if you want to give extra money to the IRS or the Oregon Department of Revenue. They'll take it. It's literally in the tax code. They're happy to take extra money. You can donate it to them just like you donate it to a charity. But if you're trying to pay the legal minimum and take the extra money and give it to your family or use it for the things that you might otherwise need it for, then you do want to be aware of tax implications. So the short answer, they're big.
Yeah, they're big. I'm laughing because I just filed my tax return for 2023, and Oregon residents, if you have filed taxes for the last few years, we're getting a kicker tax, and you can Google that and learn more about it if you want to know what it's about. But when I was filing my state tax return for the state of Oregon, it says, "Do you want to donate your Oregon kicker tax?" And I said, this is thousands of dollars for a lot of people, and I'm just like, I'm not in the position to donate my kicker tax to whatever organizations it might go to. So
yeah, and that's why I was just in the meeting this morning, because for those of you that don't know, I'm running for the House District 33, the state representative position in my district downtown, and having conversations with people who are all over the board as far as opinions about how we should make this state better. That is something that, just having those conversations. I was just having a conversation with an individual who's been involved in Oregon politics for the last 30 some odd years, and a lot of the items that are there. And there's a frustration. They would really feel like a lot of programs are underfunded, and the fact that this money is going back in the kicker to all of the residents is just a lot of money that they feel like could be doing a lot of good for a lot of other programs. But generally speaking, all of the residents feel the same way that Tyler just shared, which is I don't really want that extra money to go to the state of Oregon. I need that money back. I wanted to, you guys got enough, and that's totally fair and totally reasonable. And I get it. Everybody has to make their own decisions about, where they want those dollars to go. But ultimately, those dollars are going to go to either your family, charity, or the IRS when you pass away. And making sure that they go where you want them to go is a big part of financial planning. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's wonderful to be charitable in your own mindset. If you take your kicker check and you don't need it, there are charities out there that would be glad to take those donations. And you can always donate that to make a difference in a way that you feel like you want to see that difference done. And I think that's part of the tax planning as well. So it's not just saying I want to be greedy and take all this money back and not cover all these services I care about. It's also saying I want to control my vote of these dollars and spend them where I think they're going to make the biggest difference. And that's something that's, there's lots of opportunities for that too. And we help a lot of clients figure that out too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Ready for the next one?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Let's keep it going.
What are the best strategies for paying off student loans?
Best strategies for paying off student loans. First best strategy is try to just cover as many expenses as you can and keep your expenses down. Get scholarships, get grants. Don't borrow as little as you need to. I still think that it's great to go, get the education. Education is extremely important, but there are a lot of ways to negotiate, lower tuition payments and lower costs. I personally, took a bunch of extra credits when I went to Whitman College to graduate in 3 years instead of 4 because I didn't want to pay for that 4th year. And there was no limit. There's no price per credit. So when I went to college, I was able to just take a bunch of extra credits. Now, I'm not saying you need to do that, but it certainly saved a lot of money for me. And frankly, I probably wouldn't be here as a financial advisor today if I didn't make that choice, because I looked at my 4th year as a paid year of college. I was able to go get a job as a financial advisor and learn more and get paid instead of have to borrow, and that was like my 4th year of college is the way I looked at it. And then after a year of doing that, I realized I was born for this. I love it. It's a lot of fun. But had I gone through the 4 years, I probably wouldn't have felt like I had that extra year, and I would have had to go straight to law school, and I'd be a tax attorney today. Not to say that that's a woulda, coulda, shoulda, better or worse situation, but the fact is I'm here today because of that decision. So pay attention to the cost of school and make sure you spend as little as you can to still get the education that you want. Once you have student loans or you're borrowing that money, pay attention to the interest rates. Keep the one with the highest interest rate is the one you want to pay off first. So if you have multiple loans, always focus minimum payments on everything except for the one with the highest rate. Give all the extra money to the one with the highest rate. Look into debt consolidation opportunities, but look carefully. A lot of times those debt consolidations result in a higher rate. And you got to go back to what we talked about earlier in this. Interest rate is just like renting somebody else's money. You want to pay as little in that rent as you can. That's all about getting the lowest interest rate possible. So get the rates lower, pay all the extra money to the highest rates and the minimums to everything else, but pay on time, control your credit, make sure you get good credit. That's my quick answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel good about that. I was thinking if I wanted to expand on anything. I think it's a matter of you have the loans, you got to pay them off, and usually tackling the highest debt first makes the most sense, and getting it shaved down.
Got it.
Okay.
I feel like we're going to be running this as a really long podcast to answer all 10 of these questions. How many do we have left? Let's get all 4 of these questions out because people don't want to listen when it's too long. So.
Now, how can I reduce my debt and improve my credit score?
Okay.
How can I start building an emergency fund?
Mm-hmm.
What is the best way to invest for my retirement?
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
All of them? That's it?
Yeah, that's the remaining ones we got. Yeah.
So reducing debt, improving the credit scores, pay on time, always build a lifestyle at that 80% level before, rather than 100%. So you're not living paycheck to paycheck. So you can build up some savings. That's also the way to build the emergency funds up. And then how should I invest my retirement? Well, the best thing you can do is just give us a call, 503-579-1000, and schedule a 15-minute get acquainted call with us, because that's what we do. We're retirement income planning specialists. And that's really the best way to do this. Work with a professional. Work with people that have been spending decades of their life learning the best strategies that are going to help you, and then make sure that they educate you enough so that you can make the right decision on what you want to do with your money. You earned it. It's your decision to do what you want to do with your money, but you need to know what your options are. So find a partner. If you have a great financial advisor, I'm not saying replace them. If you've got a great planner, great. Good on you. I'm so happy that you have that. It's hard to find a good person that you connect with that way. If you have it, don't lose it. Keep that relationship going well. If you don't have a good planner, or you don't have a planner at all, and you need to find that relationship, seriously, give us a call. That's why we do this. So 503-579-1000. Wish I could give you more details on good answers. I think there's a lot of information out there in my books, as well as in the previous podcasts and radio shows that we've shared. So lots of good insights and where to start. But the easiest thing to do is just pick up the phone, dial, schedule a time. We'll have a chat.
That's right. Yep, that sounds good. Do you want to go back through each of these and do the just the answer?
Yeah, let's hit the just the answer.
Our podcast editing guru will be able to just snip it out of the previous stuff we already talked about. Or?
Let's hit all 10 questions really fast. See if
Okay,
we
let's
hit
go.
the just
First
the answer.
question.
Yep.
What is the current state of the economy, and how does it affect my finances?
Current state of the economy has been better lately, and it seems to be going better as well. This last year, the market recovered significantly, and the economy's looking good. So I would say hopefully it continues to be good. How it affects your finances: a good economy usually results in better financial circumstances, but they're not always immediately correlated. It depends on your personal life situation.
It's good. Number 2, how can I save more money?
Save more money by spending less money. You just automatically save more by spending less. Try to build a lifestyle around 80% of your income if you can, and try to save the other 20% as a good rule of thumb.
Perfect. Should I refinance my mortgage or student loans?
If you're at a high interest rate and you can get a lower interest rate, you should refinance your mortgage or your student loans. You always want to get the lowest possible rate you can. However, we're in a relatively high interest rate environment right now, so it's less likely that you're going to want to refinance those, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense for you. You have to look at the rate. If you can get a lower rate, get the lower rate.
How can I create a budget and stick to it?
How do you create a budget and stick to it? List out a T-chart, put your fixed expenses and variable expenses, list them down, and see if you can build a lifestyle around that 80% target, 80% of your revenue. Try to cover that. Know that it's easy to design a budget. It's hard to live a budget. So make sure that you keep the discipline up and have a plan in place to double check yourself. It's like getting on the scale when you're trying to lose weight. If you don't get on the scale on a regular basis, you don't know how much you weigh and how it's going one way or the other. It's the same thing with the budget. You got to look periodically what you're actually spending and make sure that your spending stays in line with what your plan is.
Is it a good time to buy a home, or should I continue renting?
Lots of pros and cons to being a homeowner versus being a renter. Make sure you've analyzed it and prepared yourself for the responsibility of owning. However, most people own their primary residence as a part of building their wealth. So if you can afford it and you're ready to do it and you're willing to hold that property for a long period of time, 5 years or more, generally speaking, I usually come down on the side of the argument of you should probably try to buy your primary residence. And it's about time in the market, not timing the market. So as soon as you can afford it and you feel like you want to do it, I recommend usually doing it and not trying to second guess when prices are going to go up or down.
What are the tax implications of my financial decisions?
The answer to that was big.
Yes.
they're big.
Go back and listen.
Go back and listen to the detailed version of that. Big is the answer to tax implications of your financial decisions.
Talk to a CPA. What are the best strategies for paying off student loans?
Pay the highest rate, pay all the extra money to the highest interest rate, and pay the minimums on everything else. That's how you get rid of debt as quickly as possible. If you can refinance it to lower interest rates, do that. But the biggest strategy is drop your costs down as best you can, negotiate, get the best rate you can for your education.
How can I reduce my debt and improve my credit score?
Reduce debt and improve credit score. Pay down the debt, spend less, make your payments on time. That's going to help you take care of that.
Perfect. How can I start building an emergency fund?
Spend less. So go to the 80%, live on that lifestyle. That'll automatically build 20%. Get your emergency fund up. Try to get to at least a few months worth of living expenses in an emergency fund. Everybody has a comfort level number. Just get to the right number for you. But at least have some money for emergencies.
Last one. What is the best way to invest for my retirement?
And the best way to invest for your retirement is to call us and schedule a Get Acquainted call. 503-579-1000, because that's what we do. There are a lot of different ways to save for retirement, but seek out a financial professional and figure out the best strategy for you. They're all very personal.
Perfect. We ready for trivia?
We're ready for trivia.
Well, let's
go
hit
ahead.
it. Okay, I got two for you. They're short. They're movie related.
Okay.
We'll see how you do.
All right. That's pretty good so far. All right, we'll see. What do you got?
Okay, in The Lord of the Rings,
Yep.
how many rings of power are there in total?
9 rings of power, I believe. I think the 9 rings to rule them all, 1 ring to bind, or maybe it's 10, I guess, because there's the 9 and then there's the 1 to rule them all. Is it 10? Oh, now I'm questioning it. I'm confused. 9 rings to bind them, 1 ring to rule them all. I'm going to go with 10.
It's double that. 20.
20?
I didn't make it. I Googled it.
What are the other 10?
I don't know. You're going to have to research it after
the rings
this.
of power. Anyway, that's cool.
An alternate universe where there's 10 in that one and 10 in the other?
You know, if you have one of those rings of power, I'd really love it if you could share. It'd be a lot of fun. There's cool stuff we could do with it.
So we'll be sitting there with my precious.
All right.
Next one, just for fun. What is the name of the dog in the movie Up?
Oh, man, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. It's such a cute movie. I love the beginning of that. I felt like it was a real shift with animated movies, too, and the way that they took it kind of seriously and had a serious beginning to it, and the whole connectivity of that little Boy Scout kid and the older guy with all the balloons and all that good stuff. That dog was hilarious. I cannot remember the name of the dog. I need to go back and rewatch the movie. I'm going to fail on 2 of these questions.
That's your homework for tonight is watch it. Watch Up.
Watch Up.
Name of the dog is Doug, spelled D-U-G. Doug.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, got it. Good. Yep. Nope. Failed. Double. Yep. 0 for 2 today.
That's all right, man.
That's all right.
I had you with smart ones.
Yeah. Well, good. Good times today. I hope you value the minutes you spent with us. Thank you so much for investing your minutes with us. Hopefully, we're giving you a good return on investment of your minutes. And if you choose to work with us, hopefully, we'll give you a good return of investment on your dollars as well. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Investment advisory services are offered through Clear FP Advisors, LLC, or Registered Investment Advisor. Securities are offered through Clear FP Securities, LLC, member of FINRA IPC. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments may fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Timothy Claremont is licensed in your state, please contact his office. Clear FP Advisors, Clear FP Securities, and Clear FP Life LLC are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Clear FP, LLC NPN number 194283777 and/or Clear FP Securities NPN number 197499604. Any discussion of general investing strategies or specific securities are for conversational purposes only and should not be taken as a guaranteed endorsement or recommendation.